What's up, Sterling? Good to have you on the podcast, man.
Thank you very much for having me, Trip.
Yes. So, well, obviously, Sterling's not your real name. Do you care to share what your real name is, or do you keep that
No, I
private?
keep I keep that a secret for the sake of my family. Uh, don't like no one. My dad and my brother and my sister, they don't really want to get harassed. You know,
Got it.
all day
Who
every
get
day for
who
being
ends up get who gets to know the
who gets to
the
know. I
real
mean, my,
name?
my close my close friends know. My real name, but honest to God, no one actually calls me. But the only people in the world who call me by my real name now are my dad and my sister.
Yeah.
Everybody else on the face of the planet that I interact with refers to me as Sterling. So even now, these days, I respond to Sterling better. It's like more instinctual now. It's weird how that happens because when I first started shooting, in the adult entertainment industry, right, it was weird hearing your stage name versus your real name. But
Yeah.
now I've gotten used to it.
Yep. Yep. Totally get it. Totally get it. So, okay, well, let's do a little history. How long have you been in the adult industry for?
Well, specifically with pornography, I got into shooting porn in 2017, but for about 4 years before that, I was actually a high class male companion back in Australia, where that kind of thing is legal.
Wait,
So I
hold
would,
on. Speak in literal terms here.
yeah, an escort, so like
Okay, you're an escort.
for wealthy businesswomen, basically. So
Interesting. Oh wow, I have
yeah,
a lot of questions about that. Okay.
yeah. So I was in that side of the sex industry first, and then I transitioned into the porn side as well, which is, if I'm going to be honest, is a lot more fun.
Okay, I can imagine. Okay, so how did you start that then? What made you think, all right, I'm going to be a male escort?
You know what? So again, we'll go back. We'll go back a little bit further then as well.
Yeah, let's go
Before
back.
that, I was in the swinging scene as a single guy. So I kind of finagled my way into the local swinger scene, and there's a lot of girls in the swinger scene, at least where I was from, who were also escorts. And over the course of like a couple of years, I had on numerous different occasions, I'd had a girl say, "Hey, you should give escorting a try. You'd be pretty good at it." And I heard that like once, I ignored it. I heard it the second time, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." Someone else said that. And then like after 3 or 4 or 5 times of hearing this, I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna give this a try, just to see if I can do it, see if I enjoy it." Yeah, and then that's how I ended up transitioning into yeah, just like I said, servicing wealthy businesswomen for a few years,
How
and
does
then
that? How do you market yourself in that? Like, how do you get people to or women to find out about you to hire you to do that?
well, basic like like you normally do for any business, like your Instagrams, your Twitters, your social medias. But in Australia, in particular, we have a lot of different forums where it's legal for you to advertise these kind of services, and so women who are looking for that companionship, who are looking for what we would call the boyfriend experience, they would go onto these forums and look for our profiles and then contact us and hire us that way.
Is the boyfriend experience a lot different than the girlfriend experience? I mean, we both know that men and women are very different creatures. So I'm curious to know what they would want out of an experience with you versus, what a guy would want.
Yeah, I mean, well, the boyfriend experience from at least when I was delivering it was a lot of whining and dining. So 5-star restaurants, a bottle of wine, some good meals, some good conversation, and then back to the hotel room for like a massage and something a bit more intimate. Or it would involve, say, spending a weekend on a skiing trip, in New Zealand or something like this. But it was a lot less emphasis on the sexual side of things, and a lot more emphasis on basically like what you would do on a date with a girl, like getting to know her, figuring out what her hopes and dreams and values are, making her feel beautiful, making her feel truly loved and appreciated, because that is the you think of the psychology of a woman who would want to hire a male escort in the first place. Like because it's not about sex. Like a woman can get sex very easily. You know, it's more about, well, can she get affection from a guy that she thinks is attractive? Can she get, or that she, be it like handsome, or be it he comes across with a certain charisma? Can she get that validation and attention and intimacy and love from that guy. It's not just about the sex. It's about that.
We can almost say like
Her
non-sexual attention in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. My job was to make her feel like she's the only woman in the world.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, women mostly don't lack the opportunity for sex. So of course, that's what she's going to be paying for, right? The opposite of that, or the part that's complementary to that. That's so interesting. How percentage of those clients that you worked with what's the percentage that you did not end up having any sex with or anything really too physical with?
Oh, we always ended up having something physical at the end of the booking. That was
Okay.
That was always
Okay.
on the cards. Yeah.
Okay, so then you transitioned to the porn industry, and how long have you been doing that for?
Yeah, I started my first porn scene at the very beginning of 2017. So I've been shooting all over the planet since 2017.
Okay, and still very active in that. Is that correct?
I'm less active in it now than I was when I first started, because nowadays I also do all this YouTube stuff. I do a lot of coaching. I help guys out in around there with their bedroom issues and their bedroom performance, and less focus on my own per se. So I've transitioned to spending a lot more time on that.
So I asked you this question before we started, and then I'm bringing it back now. If you're doing all this, or you were doing all this escorting, and you do a lot of scenes with other porn stars, there's got to be a number of these women that you're not attracted to. Well, first of all, is that true? I would just guess. I mean, that there's at least a few.
Not, it's kind of funny. No matter how beautiful a woman is, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have chemistry with her, if that makes sense. Like, she can be gorgeous and perfection. Like, everything about her is physically perfect. But if there's no spark there between you, that's what I kind of refer to as the chemistry. Is this ethereal thing that you can't really define. It's like the way that you look each other in the eyes. Like, is there any flirtatious banter going on back and forth between the two of you? Are our bodies kind of compatible when we start having sex? This is what I kind of call chemistry. And no matter how beautiful a woman is, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have chemistry with her. Now, when it came to escorting and things like this, yes, some of my clients were older women, and I get asked this question all the time, like, what if you weren't physically attracted to her? Well, the reason I'm able to do my job is because I will find something beautiful about any woman. Doesn't matter who she is. There's something about her that I can kind of latch onto and focus on that I find beautiful. That might be something as simple as her laugh. It might be her smile. It might be her eyes, the way she looks at me. Could be her hair. Could be the way she smells. It doesn't necessarily have to be like any of these sort of classically beautiful traits that men think of. Like perfect facial structure, like being skinny or toned or athletic, or having a big pair of titties or a big ass. I can latch on to anything, and I'll focus intensely on that, which will allow me to get into the zone, so to speak.
Got it. Well, I mean, hey, that is the skill right there, right? So I'm sure not everyone could do it if they wanted to. Very interesting.
Also, I'm a bit of a pervert, so that helps too.
Okay. I'm sure that goes that goes along with it. Cool. So you give advice, you have some courses that help guys in the bedroom. So I wanted today to give some of your best tips in terms of how a guy can level up in the bedroom. So why don't we go through some of those right now and give guys just some of your best advice on what they can do to blow her mind when they're together.
So it depends. I'm going to preface this with saying it depends what they want to fix, right? So some guys have performance issues in the bedroom, right? Be that the main four being erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, delayed ejaculation, and performance anxiety. So if he has a problem in one of those areas, then we can sort of dial in and really fix that problem. Or if he just wants to be a better lover and make his woman like climax more consistently, okay, well then we can also focus on that too, right? So if you want, I can give you little bits and pieces on all this kind of stuff.
I think we should, because I think I'm convinced that every guy at least one time in their life has suffered from premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, and I would like to cover those and get your advice on those, and as well as how to
Absolutely.
make a woman climax and all
So
that.
let's start with the performance stuff, because that's, if a guy has a pain point, that's something he's really really wanting to like solve. And first of all, I'll say that a lot of guys confuse erectile dysfunction with performance anxiety, or the other way around. So erectile dysfunction is about the plumbing. Is your blood flow on point? Do you have maybe some microscopic arterial plaques which is inhibiting your blood flow? Is your nitric oxide production on point? Are you able to relax enough to get a strong erection? These are all about the plumbing. The performance anxiety, however, is an entirely mental problem, because this performance anxiety is basically the inability to get an erection because you're so goddamn anxious. The interesting thing, a lot of guys will reach for the little blue pill, Viagra or Cialis, right, when they have this experience for the first time. And what they might find is, with some guys, it might actually work purely because it's a placebo effect. But with other guys, they might take it and it does nothing. And they're sitting there scratching their head wondering why. And the reason is, Viagra, Cialis, these focus on the plumbing. They don't give you an erection, they help it stick around for longer. They help the blood flow, right? And I can tell you, I've been on porn sets before, like gangbang sets, blowbang sets, whatever. There's like one chick in a room full of dudes, and they use these sets to kind of test out like new guys to see if they got what it takes. And I've seen guys be red in the face because they've popped a Viagra and they still haven't got a stiffy, and they're like getting nervous and they get more anxious, and so they pop another one, and so their face becomes flush red because they've pumped all these drugs into themselves, and their boner is still limp, and they're like, why the hell am I not getting an erection? I'm supposed to have an erection. I just took all these drugs. It's because they don't give you the boner. They keep it there, right? So the gray matter between your ears, that's what actually gives you an erection. That sensation of arousal comes from you, right? So that's the first thing guys kind of have to understand, that to really address the problem. Now, if you're a younger guy, you probably don't have a problem with erectile dysfunction. It's probably performance anxiety. If you're not like old, if your hormones are kind of on point, if you're reasonably cardiovascularly fit, you're not diabetic or overweight, you probably do not have erectile dysfunction. That is, however, if the opposite of that is true, then maybe you do have something problem there. So, first thing you could do with that is obviously get your cardiovascular health on point, get in the gym, lose some weight, fix up your diet, make sure your hormones are on point, make sure you've got your testosterone levels are healthy and high, and there's a few things you can consume that'll help your nitric oxide production, for example. Like L-arginine is a very basic supplement. You can take a couple of thousand milligrams of that a day to help, and that's a natural supplement. You can help with the nitric oxide production. You can also take things like pomegranate juice, and there's like beetroot powder supplements these days, which are also really good for helping promote nitric oxide production, which is going to allow nitric oxide, for those who don't know, is what allows your blood vessels to relax and dilate. And an erection is actually a relaxation response. People don't really realize that. Interesting. So, because your blood vessels have to relax so they can fill and engorge with blood, and that's what gives you, it makes your penis bigger. And that's why when you're really anxious and stressed out, your blood vessels are still constricted, so you can't get that physical response that you want because you're too stressed.
Oh, wow. I never knew that.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. Okay, so that's what's happened. Okay. So a few things here. First of all, I like that we're talking about the difference, because when I said earlier, every guy has experienced erectile dysfunction at least once in their life, I think what I'm actually trying to say is performance anxiety based on what we're talking about here, because erectile dysfunction, like you're saying, is more of an actual dysfunction. There's something wrong going on inside of your body, whatever it may be, like the things you mentioned. But performance anxiety is probably the number one cause of not getting an erection, we'll say. And and wow, yeah, that's so interesting. So that's the reason why when people get nervous, they tend to end up. That's why the tips that I've heard are a lot around breathing and trying to get into that relaxed state. But I'm curious what you'll have to say here.
Yeah, so it's a couple of things. Obviously, being in a relaxed state is the ideal, right? The problem is if you're stressed out and anxious and nervous, and that advice doesn't really help too much. It's like, oh, just relax, man. Well, like I'd like to relax, but I'm kind of stressed out. So it's a lot harder to do when you're in the moment, right? So there's a few things we can do preemptively to try to make, because the ideal state of mind is one of being present in the moment. If anyone's watching this is familiar with meditation, for example, that's kind of what meditation tries to do. It tries to get you present in the moment, so you're not in your head. Because if you're in your head, that's when trouble starts to happen. And a big part of getting out of your head is paying attention to where your focus is. And again, this time I'm going to link this back again to meditation. This is why I actually encourage guys to meditate kind of regularly. I recommend the Headspace app. It's totally free, and you can do some guided meditation on your phone, just to understand what it means to be present, to have something to compare it to, right? And you'd be surprised how many men in the porn industry, like male performers, meditate. It's super common. So that's like a preemptive practice you can start implementing in your life that's going to make it far less likely for you to have any bouts of performance anxiety. But during the act of sex itself, if you are feeling anxious and stressed out, it is entirely, I'd almost go as far as to say it's 100% certainty that your focus is on your penis. That the thoughts that are racing through your head are something like, oh, I hope my old boy rises to the occasion. I really hope I just don't disappoint her. I hope that he doesn't go down halfway through. These are all thoughts that are focusing on you and your body. So if you are kind of anxious and nervous already, and you start thinking, oh, I really hope I don't lose my boner, I can almost guarantee the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose your boner, because that's where you're giving your mind's attention to. What I tell a lot of guys to do, there's a couple of different mental approaches I give them, like mental frameworks I give them. One of them is to deliberately divert your focus onto her. And that sounds really simple, but it's a lot more intense and focused and deliberate. Because if you're stuck in your head in this thought pattern, you need to break out of it. And so the way you would break out of it is you're also physically, like the mind-body connection is a real thing. So if I'm, say for example, let's say I'm in doggy style with my girl and I'm starting to get anxious or whatever, or I want to break the physical space I'm in and move and literally change position like by 90 degrees, just so because my mind is anchored into that physical space as well. So if the first thing you should do if you're experiencing this kind of bout of performance anxiety or nerves is move, because motion creates emotion. Motion changes emotions. So if the first thing I do in response is move, okay, well then I can change my focus. If I'm trying to change my focus and I'm still in the exact same physical space that I was in before, it's going to be a lot harder. So you're kind of tricking your brain in a way doing this. So a sudden movement and then a change of focus onto her, onto whatever is the thing that you find the sexiest about your partner. It could be her, you could be a butt guy, you could be an ass guy, you could be an eyes guy, whatever it is. That's where you're directing your focus. And personally, and I know a lot of guys in my industry do the exact same thing, we will use eating pussy, going down on a girl, as a way to get us rock hard and ready for the scene. Because when my head's buried between a girl's thighs, I don't have to worry about my penis. I'm totally there paying attention to her body, like how wet is she, what are the sounds coming out of her, what is like is her pelvis tightening up, like are her legs starting to quiver and shake, how's her breathing. All these things, my focus is entirely on her. Now you can also move your focus to the room you're in, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the lights that are in the room you're in. As long as your focus isn't internal and on your penis, you'll find yourself breaking out of that nervous and stressful mental pattern.
Yeah, I was just imagining this situation of movement as you were saying. And I was thinking, like, imagining, okay, the very average position, let's just say you're naked with a woman, you're making out, she's on top of you, and you're just like, this is not happening. I'm not getting an erection. I'm not getting hard. Oh my God, oh my God. A simple thing that you could do is just move her off of you, and now you go on top of her. So that would be an example that I'm kind of thinking of, to switch things up and to get yourself into a new mind space. That's great. That's great.
Get yourself back into a rhythm again, and I'll give you guys one more kind of mental framework that helps for a lot of guys, and it's what I call the selfish pervert framework. So it's a combination of being selfish and being a pervert. Now, if I was just purely selfish in the bedroom, you'd pump away for like 30 seconds and bust your nut and you'd be done. It's very, very selfish, right? But it's kind of selfishness combined with perversion. So I teach guys to kind of look at her as your sexual muse. Like her body is there for your perverse enjoyment, and you're going to enjoy every little nook and cranny and taste and texture of her body. But you're doing it from a place of kind of selfishness. And so what does that do? Well, it counteracts these mental thought patterns that a lot of guys have when they get performance anxiety. It counteracts these mental thought patterns of, oh, I hope I'm as good as her last boyfriend. I hope I really please her. I hope I don't disappoint her. I hope she wants to see me again. All these kinds of thought patterns are not helping you, because you're coming from this place of trying to desperately please her. And ironically enough, that women will pick up on that immediately, and it actually makes it less likely for you to please her, because the worst thing you can do for a woman's orgasm is to put her in her head and put expectations on her and put pressure on her to climax. That will almost guarantee that she won't climax. So this also helps with actually being a better lover too, ironically, kind of paradoxically. So you come at sex from this somewhat selfish perspective, and she's kind of along for the ride. Like, you're the guy in control of the sexual roller coaster, and you are having a lot of fun with it. Obviously, we're not pushing any boundaries. This is done consensually. I'm just going to say that because of the day and age we live in. People can take things out of context. But the selfish, perverted frame has helped a lot of my clients get over those anxiety-inducing thoughts that lead them down the wrong path.
Yeah, I like it. I think of the term self-fulfilling prophecy, by the way, when you're talking about this, right? It's like you're afraid that you're not going to turn her on, and by thinking that, you're doing actions that's not turning her on.
Bingo.
Right? So you got to be careful of that. Okay. And then any other thoughts on that? Otherwise, I'm curious your thoughts on premature ejaculation.
Yeah, well, let's go on to that. So it's actually there's a large correlation between premature ejaculation and performance anxiety. Super strong correlation between the two. Because
the double whammy.
Yeah,
it takes you a long time to get an erection, and then once you do, all of a sudden, premature ejaculation. So it's like, oh, cool, two in one night. How fantastic!
Yeah, exactly. And it's because they kind of come from the same place. Again, it comes from your mental focus being on the wrong thing. That's one of the primary causes of premature ejaculation. But the other major cause of premature ejaculation that no one really talks about is an imbalance in your pelvic floor muscles. So a lot of people have heard of Kegel exercises. And if anyone who's curious as to what a Kegel exercise is, it's the easiest way to describe it to a guy is that thing you do when you stop when you're peeing and you stop the flow of urine coming out of your dick, that clenching sensation, that is a Kegel, right? And you can do these deliberately as an exercise, which is strengthen your pelvic floor. You want to strengthen your PC muscle and your BC muscle. These things are what kind of control. They can control the flow of blood in and out of the penis and hold the blood in your penis. And they also, more importantly, in relation to premature ejaculation, they control the ejaculatory spasm response. So, but the problem a lot of guys make is they focus purely on Kegels in one direction. There are like two different kinds of Kegels. There's what we call regular Kegels and then reverse Kegels. Now, for example, a regular Kegel will be stopping the flow of urine coming out of your dick. A reverse Kegel would be the opposite. If you've ever been to the toilet and peed and you've kind of forced that, you've done that kind of pushing sensation and you forced urine out of your penis faster, that's a reverse Kegel, right? And that kind of pushing is actually like a relaxation of these muscles. And that is actually the exercise a lot of guys need to focus on if they are trying to balance their pelvic floor more so that they can prevent premature ejaculation. Because premature ejaculation is basically the tensing of these muscles downstairs which cause orgasm. And if you're already in a very tense state because you're nervous, and then on top of that, these muscles down there are extremely tense and overworked and overstressed, well then you're going to climax a lot quicker. So you want to actually focus on balancing the pelvic floor, helping it relax a lot more, and that will give you a lot more control. This is, if any guys watching right now have this problem, you can literally try this in the bedroom tonight, and that maybe practice when you're peeing, later on today or something. That pushing sensation of forcing the urine out of your dick faster when you go to pee. Try to replicate that pushing sensation during sex, and you will notice that you will actually regain a lot of control. If you feel like you're getting too close to climax, try that pushing sensation in your penis, and that will actually help you regain a lot of control.
This is so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Most guys, they're attempting to not finish, so they're tensing because that's what you think to do to not release something, right?
Yep.
Is you tense, but you're saying do the exact opposite. Do that reverse Kegel, which is actually a pushing motion, and that relaxation helps stop. What I'm confused with what happens at that point.
Because an orgasm is the contraction of those muscles down there. It's the spasming of them
it's the
on and off
contraction.
and off.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm relaxed, if I'm tense and I'm tensing like this, then that is basically stimulating the exact same musculature which happens when I orgasm. If I'm relaxing, however, they can't do that.
Right. You can't physically be able to ejaculate if you're
going to have control. You're going to at least have control over it.
Yes. Okay.
Because the premature ejaculation is basically like an involuntary ejaculation. It's him not having control over when he climaxes. So it's like his own body's betraying him, because he's like, I want to last longer, but for some reason the old boy downstairs doesn't want to cooperate, and it's because he's too tense, and that muscle is just like basically spasming and flexing all the time. Yeah,
that's interesting. One of the best tips I've ever heard is very similar to that. It's just a little bit different. It's a little bit different, but I think I like yours better. At least we'll see when we try it out. But the idea is when you feel like you're getting close to ejaculating, what's happening is all the muscles in your body are usually pretty tense. It's not just down there. Your legs, your butt, maybe your back, maybe your stomach. So as you're feeling like, oh man, I'm getting close, instantly release all the tension from your body. So start to pay attention to wherever it is that you're cramping up and start to release that, and that actually helps too. And it's funny because that tip is, like I said, very similar to what you're saying, but yours is just more specific about the loosening of your actual penis and groin area versus the
specifically
whole body.
the PC and the BC muscles in your pelvic floor, and it's because like that's that instruction of the pushing sensation, right? That's something guys can kind of latch onto and they can replicate. It's a lot harder to say, oh, relax your back muscles. Okay, well, how do I do that exactly? It's a lot, like, I get it, and the advice is correct, but it is a lot harder to like consciously start. Okay, yeah, if my legs are cramping, I can move my legs, change positions. That's easy. But it's like getting all of your musculature to relax is a lot more challenging in that kind of moment than you might expect it to be. And there's something, and another thing I'll add into that as well is breathing. And what you'll notice is when you climax, you're going to breathe a certain way, right? So maybe you're going to hold your breath in, for example. So if you are aware of how you breathe when you climax, when you orgasm, well then, if you feel yourself losing control, you can deliberately change your breath to the complete opposite of whatever that is. So if you tense and hold your breath in, okay, well if I feel like I'm getting close, then I'm going to take long, deliberate, deep breaths to counteract that and regain more control again.
This is definitely something that needs to be practiced.
Yes. Yeah.
It might not be something you get right away.
It's like sex is a skill like anything else. Like you don't jump on a bike and you immediately know how to ride a bike. You don't jump and you don't take one boxing class and now you're an MMA fighter. Like this, and people, sex and relationships are the only two things that everyone is expected to be good at without any like practice or training. We just throw people into it and we're like, figure it out. You're having problems? Oh, everyone else is doing totally fine, which they're not. But we're expected to kind of know without any practice at all. And that's why, and like, I think if people look at sex as more of a skill, especially guys, it'll help them to kind of get over any of these, hang-ups and maybe low self-esteem and low confidence they have around the bedroom. They look at it that way. It's like, oh, okay, this is just something I need to kind of like study a little bit, practice more, and be patient with, and I'll develop the skill. Like, no man on this planet was amazing in bed the very, very first time he had sex. It's just not possible. You don't know the female body, and you don't know your own body in that situation, right?
Or maybe end up putting the condom on backwards 2 times in a row.
I remember doing that a few times.
Maybe speaking from experience. I don't know. Yeah, no, you're right, and it's, to me, it's so interesting that that even like with dating and dating advice and especially with sex, like we don't get classes to learn these things, yet they're things that are happening all the time. I mean, you get sex ed, but that's not how to. That's just teaching kids what sex is, right? Yeah. It's really a shame. So they have to find podcasts like these, and that's fine. Anywho. Okay, great. So any other tips on helping guys with premature ejaculation?
I think we've gone over a bunch of practical little things. If guys get too like, because there's a ton of little tidbits they can try and practice, but it's kind of like a lot of dudes will get analysis paralysis, right? If I give a guy like a dozen prescriptions, he's like, oh, do I have to do all 12 of these things? I'm like, no, just do one. Just do one. If it works, fantastic. Your problem is solved, right? If that one doesn't work, okay, try this second thing and rinse and repeat. Like, you can fix this. Plenty of men have fixed this problem. So it's like, but I think if you give guys too many, prescriptions like this, especially if they're the more analytical minded kind of guy, they're going to just go down a rabbit hole and like they'll think they can never actually fix their problem.
Yeah, no, I get it. Again, similar to dating advice too, is there's so much out there. There's so much you can learn about how to meet women, how to pick up women, and there's so much that you almost get overwhelmed that you don't even know what to do. There's just too much information out there. So I always tell guys, just like you're saying, pick one thing. Pick one thing that you want to focus on to get better at when you're trying to meet women. Focus on one little area of flirting. Focus on the approach. Focus on just asking women for their number, just all these kind of little baby skills to make up the big skill, so to speak. So
Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
I agree with that. Let's be honest, that's the way to learn anything in life, right? It's like you're not going to pick up a guitar, for example, and learn scales, chords, picking this, that. It's like, no, you got to pick one thing, focus on it, and go with it. So with that being said, I think you have some more tips for us on how to be a better lover, how to please her more in the bedroom. So what do you got for us
Yeah.
with that?
So I kind of deviate. There's a lot of like what would you call like sex coaches, intimacy coaches
Yeah.
on the internet. Most of them, if you really go out and look at them, like 99% of them kind of come at like sex advice from this angle of like tantra, and being and like tapping into kind of what I would call the more like feminine side of sexual nature. Because tantra is like two people sitting there being really patient, being like lots of breathing, lots of like teasing, being really close to each other. Not this sort of, what I personally kind of teach guys is really the opposite of that, which is to try and tap into their more masculine dominant nature. Because if there's one thing that turns women on across the board, it's men tapping into that side of themselves. Because if a man, there's a reason why like a lot of women have BDSM kind of fantasies, and things like 50 Shades of Grey did so extremely well. And I don't know if you're familiar with Mills and Boon novels, these old school romance books that used to have Fabio on the cover. Like they all exactly the same idea. They basically all kind of tap into this classical idea of the roguish, kind of animalistic, untamed man, and then the submissive woman. As much as say for example, modern day feminists might say, "Oh, I don't want to submit to no man." The bedroom is the one place where men are kind of allowed to be like into their full masculine, and women are allowed to be into their full feminine, and it really works. So I personally try to encourage guys to be more, obviously within people's boundaries. I'm going to say this again because this is the internet and people will take things out of context. Within consensual and within people's boundaries, but I encourage guys to be more dominant and aggressive in their bedroom with their partners. Be more physically imposing on them, physically dominant on them in the way they have sex. And you'd be very, very surprised how well women respond to this if you've never tried it before. So a really, really basic thing that I'll teach a lot of guys as a first step. If they are what you would say vanilla, right? If they're lacking confidence and they've never tried being more aggressive in their bedroom and they're kind of hesitant, first thing I'll tell them, just try pinning a woman's hands down, like this, like in missionary position, right? You don't have to hurt her, you don't have to like bruise her hand, you don't have to be super aggressive with it, but just pinning the hands down by her side and staring her into the eyes with a little smile on your face. If a guy has never done this before, you would be so, it's a really eye-opening experience to see a woman's eyes like light up and roll to the back of her head, because in her head she's thinking, "Oh yes, I found one. I found a guy who is going to take me. He's actually going to give me this kind of animalistic experience that I've been craving." Right? So that is probably really, really basic advice for a lot of guys watching this. But there might be a few guys out there who are very, very vanilla, and for them that would be an extreme step for them, right? So I start guys off with baby steps. Now moving along, depending upon how far a guy wants to go, okay, guys can go into BDSM and toys and floggers and vibrators and all kinds of crazy kinky stuff. But in terms of just the pure mechanics of the body, of the male-female body, learning how to be a better lover is actually, a lot of it is about understanding angles and understanding like the way the vagina is shaped, where the G-spot is, and understanding the angle that you can penetrate at given your appendage. Now, two really basic variations that any guy can do to your common sex positions. So let's take missionary, for example. Let's see if I can do this on camera so you can actually see. So pretend this is like the woman's body laying down, right? And if I'm the man, I'm coming. This is the man's appendage. In regular missionary, if I'm penetrating at this sort of angle, well, it's not a great angle for hitting her G-spot, because the G-spot is on like the roof of her pubic mound, right? However, if I just prop up her hips with a pillow, for example, okay, now we've changed the angle of penetration, and as I'm penetrating, I'm coming in here, and the head of my penis is actually hitting her G-spot with every stroke, right? Real tiny difference, just shoving a pillow under a girl's hips will dramatically improve her experience in missionary position. That's just one example. Let's take another example. Let's look at cowgirl position. When it went with the girl running on top of you, right? A lot of guys, because they will have watched a porno and they see the way we do all the we do sex in pornos purely for like entertainment purposes. It's not necessarily for like practical like enjoyment of the performers. It's more for the enjoyment of the viewer because it looks cool and you can see things. So the way people tend to do cowgirl is they go up and down a lot, right? Which is fine and all, but it doesn't really hit the right spots. It's far better if you have a woman laying on top of you like that. I call it panning for gold. If you can imagine like an old school like a prospector with his little pan, he's doing this, right? So imagine I'm grabbing onto her thighs or the back of her hips, or one of each, and I'm making her come forwards and backwards while I'm inside her while she's sitting on top of me. What's happening there? Well, it's going to cause, again, same principle, the head of my penis to slam again and again into her G-spot. And on top of that also, because she's grinding on top of me, her clitoris is grinding into my pubic bone and my pelvis at the same time. So she's getting 2 for 1 at the exact same time, right? And understanding these little mechanical variations you can make to basic sex positions will dramatically improve her experience and the ease with which you can actually get a woman off. That little variation in cowgirl, I've given this little tip to a couple of friends of mine who are actually dating coaches, oddly enough. A couple of guys that went home and tried it out, like, holy shit, Stirling, that, like, 2 minutes, bang, she's orgasming on top of my pelvis. I'm like, good man. Like, I know what I'm talking about. Keep it up.
So just hitting the right angle, so it's not just penis going in vagina, but it's hitting a spot inside of her that will turn her on even more.
Yeah, so there's 2 things you can, when it comes to penetration, there's 2 things you can focus on. One is, okay, is the angle of penetration good, and is the head of my penis hitting into a G-spot? And the second thing is, okay, is there something I can do in this position which will allow her clitoris to kind of grind against my pubic area, and that will stimulate her that way as well? Because those are really the 2 things you can play around with. They're going to get her off, right? The clitoris and the G-spot. So those are where you're going to be like paying most attention to in terms of your penetrating positions. Now, in terms of, a lot of guys like ask me for advice on going down on a woman, cunnilingus, pussy eating, whatever you want to call it, right? And my personal technique for this, and which has worked for all my students, is I look at every woman is kind of different in terms of her sensitivity of her clitoris. So I look at it as like a spectrum, like a speed dial, like a speedometer that you have on a car, right? So every woman from super duper soft to really, really intense, like Hitachi level vibrations, somewhere along the spectrum is going to be her sweet spot. And it's your job to kind of figure out where that is and stay there. So if you're going down on a woman, I tell guys, if you're new with this girl, you don't quite know what she responds well to, start off super, super slow and soft with your tongue strokes on her clitoris, and then ever so gradually increase the speed and intensity. Ever so gradually, right? Until you reach a point where you're getting the correct feedback physically from her. Her legs are starting to quiver, her clitoris is engorging, her pussy's getting wetter, her breathing is getting heavier. You're like, okay, these are all good signs. We're on the right track, right? And another thing you can do in that situation too is you can tell the girl, you're only allowed to say 4 words to me while I'm doing this. Harder or softer, faster or slower. That's it. Those are the only words you're allowed to say. Harder, softer, faster, slower. What does that do?
Not like left or right.
Yeah, not like this, right? I mean, you basically want to stay at about 1. Imagine if you're looking down the barrel, if you're looking directly at the clitoris, you want to kind of put your tongue strokes at 1 p.m. That is the sweet spot for basically every woman. 1 p.m. on the clitoris is the
So a little bit to the right in a sense.
Tiny bit to the right. Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit to the right. That's kind of where you want to focus most of your attention. And occasionally, okay, let's say we're doing vertical strokes. Occasionally, every now and then, mix it up with a horizontal stroke just to kind of break the repetitiveness and stop her from getting numb to the sensation. This shit is a science, man. I love talking about it. But what does that, me telling a girl harder, softer, faster, slower, what does that do? The mistake a lot of guys will make when they're going down on a girl is they'll say something like, do you like that? Do you enjoy that? Does that feel good? Right? Of course she's going to say yes. Because she's not going to, if she doesn't enjoy it, I don't know any man who's had the experience of a woman being like, no, that sucks, stop doing what you're doing. Because they don't want to hurt your ego. Because they know if they, like, the male ego is kind of attached to, like, the ability to get the old boy downstairs to rise to the occasion. So they don't want to, like, offend you, even if you're doing a shit job. So, by giving her the tools to describe what she wants, harder, softer, faster, slower, you've given her the tools to give you a roadmap. And it's done in this fun kind of dominant, submissive context.
Right, I was just going to say, yeah, it's dominant, which actually will also turn her on. So just the act of it turns her on.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can just work your way along the spectrum, and she can tell you, okay, faster, softer, harder, and then she'll stop talking, and her body will start responding quite positively. And you're like, just stay there. Don't change a goddamn thing. Just keep doing what you're doing, and you're gonna get it there. Now, if you want to throw in an extra little bonus, you can give her the old come hither. Insert 2 fingers into the vagina, do the come hither motion on the G-spot at the same time, right? Whilst you're going down on her with your tongue, and that gives her like a double whammy sensation, which is I like to. Once I've found that rhythm, like she's directed me to that spot that she likes in terms of sensation. That's when I'll put the fingers in to kind of push her over the edge, so that we're going to get her to climax that way. But there you go. I hope everyone watching is getting a masterclass.
And listening, because this will also be on the podcast. No, this is great, and let's stop there, because I think any more than this, and again, same idea, analysis paralysis. Unless you have one more killer one that you had to give us, but
no. Stuff them. That's all we get.
Okay. Hey, you know what? We can always have you back on the podcast and
Bingo.
And YouTube channel, so it shouldn't be a problem. Sterling, dude, I'm not just saying this. I've interviewed over the course of 7-8 years doing this podcast a lot of different sex experts, and this was some of the best advice I've ever heard, really across the board. And I really mean that in terms of premature ejaculation, performance anxiety, and just tips to turn her on. Also, you explained it well, but it's also very practical, so it's easy for someone to go off and do. So thanks for doing it, and thanks for being here. Where can guys find you if they want to learn more about you and your course and everything that you're up to?
The one-stop shop is stirlingcooper.com. My name is spelled Stirling, in case anyone misspells it. Stirlingcooper.com. You can find all my books and my courses there. You can find links to all my social medias and stuff. If you want to get access to I give a ton of free advice as well on my YouTube channel. I have just hundreds of videos on there ranging from all kinds of different topics around the bedroom stuff, around dating stuff, or relationship stuff as well. I dabble in that a bit. Just Google YouTube search for Stirling Cooper, and you'll find my channel. It'll pop up, and you can go, yeah. I give out a ton of free advice for a reason, so you guys can take it and apply it. So take advantage of that.
Awesome. Cool. I'll put some of that info in the show notes so guys can check that out. Sterling, you rock, man. Thanks for doing this. Glad to have you on the podcast and on the channel, and I'll be speaking to you very soon. Thanks, bud.
Thank you very much, Trip.